Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump's administration is facing a full rebellion from the MAGA faithful, the most diehard, the people that spend all day online talking about Donald Trump. Some of the president's most strident supporters are furious at his Department of Justice after concluded there would be no further disclosures of Jeffrey Epstein-related documents, and that, basically, everyone should just drop it and move on. This comes after his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, basically spent months hyping some sort of big reveal from the Department of Justice. Epstein, of course, the disgraced New York financier who died in federal custody back in 2019 while facing child sex trafficking charges related to what prosecutors says was a years-long scheme to abuse young women. A new memo from the DOJ reiterates the department's position that Epstein was not murdered, noting, quote, after a thorough investigation, FBI investigators concluded that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in his cell. They even released nearly 11 hours of security camera footage from outside Epstein's cell that night of his death. Although that will likely do little to quell the ongoing conspiracies, especially considering the video is missing an entire minute. The DOJ attributes that to a long-standing glitch with the system. Despite all the Epstein didn't kill himself memes and the never-ending, increasingly Baroque conspiracies, the MAGA faithful are really mad about this part of the memo. Quoting it here. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Now, that claim that there was no shadowy client list, ostensibly containing evidence that Epstein was secretly blackmailing political and financial and Hollywood elites, certainly seemed to contradict what Trump's own attorney general said on television back in February.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. She did just say that, right? We just heard her correctly. Now her Department of Justice says no such list exists. But again, this wasn't just Pam Bondi misspeaking or speaking ambiguously, one-off remark. I mean, seriously, 4 months. This has been a drumbeat. She's promised some sort of big revelation from the documents. I mean, do you remember this? Back in February, the White House even held this big event with right-wing influencers sharing a bunch of what turned out to be previously reported in the public domain information. They had repackaged into a bunch of fancy binders, which they handed out to people. And so when the DOJ comes back basically yesterday and says, you know what, looked at it and turns out nothing to see here. Well, now that same right-wing media ecosystem is absolutely fuming.
The whole thing that this tape shows he didn't kill himself is like a joke. But worse than that, it's a joke that we all get. Like, they're not fooling anybody. So I feel like we're at a dangerous point now.
So now by coming in and being part of the cover-up, the Trump administration has become part of it. I mean, it's just you cannot see it any other way. So I just got to the office. I'm going to go throw up, actually. And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm physically going to puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. Because I have integrity. And, I just really need the Trump administration to succeed and to save this country. And they're doing so much good. And then for them to do something like this tears my guts out.
Do you see what you've done, Pam Bondi? You have made Alex Jones cry and possibly puke, which he only does a few times a year because of how much integrity he has. In hindsight, though, I don't think that those people should be very surprised. As we have said before, repeatedly, this has been a consistent theme of our reporting here on this program. If you were a single-issue voter in 2024 and hating Jeffrey Epstein and people associated with him was your only issue, Donald Trump should not have been the candidate for you. Trump and Epstein were friends. Everyone has seen the photos and the party tapes at Mar-a-Lago where they seem to leer at women. And we remember when Trump famously told New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." One of the women at the center of the Epstein sex trafficking case, Virginia Giuffre, who recently died by suicide, claimed that she was actually recruited as a minor by Epstein's collaborator Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago. And when that collaborator was facing trial for sex trafficking, Donald Trump seemed oddly concerned about her.
Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, and a lot of people want to know if she's going to turn in powerful people. And I know you've talked in the past about Prince Andrew, and you've criticized Bill Clinton's behavior. I'm wondering, do you feel that she's going to turn in powerful men? How do you see that working out?
I don't know. I haven't really been following it too much. I just wish her well, frankly. I've met her numerous times over the years, especially since I lived in Palm Beach, and I guess they lived in Palm Beach. But I wish her well, whatever it is. Her friend or boyfriend, Epstein, was either killed or committed suicide in jail. She's now in jail. Yeah, I wish her well. I'd wish you well. I'd wish a lot of people well. Good luck.
Do you remember that? Remember that when Maxwell was being tried for sex trafficking and Donald Trump was asked about her, and his first instinct was to be like, "I wish her well." Used to know her back in the day in Palm Beach, saw her all the time. Now think back to the 2024 campaign. Do you ever remember Donald Trump talking about Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, all the crazy nonsense he said about all kinds of insane internet sewer gutter stuff. I mean, and then there's the JFK stuff and the Hannibal Lecter riffs you would do. He conveniently never brought this case up. And then when he was asked about it, Trump gave this truly remarkable answer.
Americans have lost a lot of trust in institutions, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, especially online and especially with young people. How do we rebuild that trust in institutions? The CIA, the FBI, all those institutions.
You're right.
Some people think that one way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these. Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least...
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others. Certainly about the way he died. It would be interesting to find out what happened there because that was a weird situation and the cameras didn't happen to be working, et cetera, et cetera.
Epstein, I don't know so much. I mean, this became a huge obsession of the kind of online MAGA right. I mean, really, listen to how then podcaster Dan Bongino spoke about this earlier this year before joining the Trump DOJ.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything. Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
Good question, Dan Bongino. That was back in February. And here is Dan Bongino just 2 months later, now installed as Trump's second in command at the FBI.
You know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to... I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Kind of a different vibe. This idea that Donald Trump, of all people, was going to be the one to crack the Epstein case wide open was always a ludicrous notion, a weird bit of projection. And it seems like MAGA world has finally figured that out. And despite all the furor from his base, and it's sizable today, Trump is desperate to talk about anything else.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. Can you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the
Yeah, sure. If
Pam, could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration.
The Attorney General a question too, President.
Sure.
Your memo and release yesterday on Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file, along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
This is truly unusual breaking news. You know the breaking news animation. You know sometimes the news is big, significant, serious. This one is unusual. A major escalation in what is increasingly a kind of political, quiet, peaceful civil war, but a civil war of political proportions for MAGA over these Epstein files. And it's roiling the Trump administration at quite literally the highest levels. Sources detailing the ongoing clash over a fight that could cost someone their job. Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi clashing with the FBI number 2 official Dan Bongino. As everybody who follows these kind of stories knows, technically the AG oversees the FBI, but if you remember Comey or other strong-willed FBI officials, when you're at that number 1, number 2 level, they sometimes fight with the DOJ. Sources say Bongino is so upset about all this, he's saying maybe he'll just leave, which would be a very quick tenure, by the way. And he would be leaving in a sort of protest or criticism of Bondi's handling of the Epstein files. Other outside agitators, including Tucker Carlson, saying she's lost confidence. Maybe she has to go. He was not at work today, reportedly. Sources also say Bondi and Bongino got into a heated clash Wednesday in a high-level meeting with him, her, FBI Director Patel, and Donald Trump's number 1 person who tracks all this stuff and makes the big staffing decisions, Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, who, of course, also ran the Victoria's campaign. Axios has a report on this where Pam says her piece, Dan says his piece, didn't end on friendly terms. Bongino left angry. And you don't need to be a scholar of reporting or Watergate level intrigue to know somebody in this small meeting is leaking this stuff to Axios if it's true. A source close to Bongino saying he ain't coming back. Out of control furious is the other quote. This destroyed his career. He's threatening to quit and torch Pam unless she's fired, said someone who, again, according to that reporting, spoke with Bongino. By the way, hire podcasters and right-wing media figures to run major parts of the government, and you may find major parts of the government are being leaked on and run like another piece of podcast content. I'll come back to how some of this does swirl around MAGA content. Other parts of it, of course, are serious when you think about the victims in the original Epstein case. All of this, though, occurred because the DOJ has fallen short of the pledges that people around Trump, including Bondi, made. There were many questions about the Epstein case. From the moment of his in-custody death, this news program, for example, has reported on those questions. There are some suspicious details. This news program has not done what a lot of the internet and MAGA right-wing sort of circles have done, which is assert without evidence what maybe happened and then wait for the government to confirm it. Now we're seeing significant backlash from MAGA, probably some of the loudest against Trump since he took office. Journalists, other people following Doge and Musk may be reporting one set of problems to the administration, but on the right, this is the big problem. All of this is because it was partly stoked by the very people who now say nothing to see here. They stoked this conspiracy which imploded on them.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now.
In Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
What names are in there, man? You understand how many powerful people probably want this thing to desperately go away?
The FBI airmailed into that operation and said, this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
Release the list. That's the now vice president. The list's on my desk, the attorney general. The government gangsters, quote unquote, are in charge of all this stuff. The problem is they caught the car. All those people talking up that way now have the goods. They're in the government. They used to be pointing their finger. They found it pointing at themselves, like many an old internet meme, and it's blown up on them. So this matters politically because one or more people may be out of a job. It matters in a deeper sense because we're seeing the limits of governing by clickbait or political conspiracy theory. It also could matter if any of it got back to the real questions about the Epstein case, not whether Pam Bondi was lying when she said she had an Epstein list or is lying now when the memo says it doesn't exist, but can't be both. Now, in the FBI, there's a wider dysfunction involving some of these same people who we know from what they're saying have been spending many, many days, a lot of their energy on a client list they now say doesn't exist. But the Times is reporting that the FBI is taking the unusual step of using lie detectors for loyalty tests, subjecting personnel to questions as specific as to whether they've criticized or, quote, cast aspersions on Patel, who you just saw in that other clip talking about gangsters. This looks like something from a movie or another era, but according to the Times, it's happening. And in Trump's DOJ under Bondi, there's also a purge because there are officials who say they might be targeted not for how they're doing their job, but whether they're insufficiently, quote, politically loyal to Bondi and Trump. Fired without explanation, a culture of fear is how the Post describes it. And so one more point on all this tonight. What started as a very real question about a suspicious in-custody death, any journalist or lawyer could tell you the government's holding a high-profile detainee and they die under suspicious circumstances, you want to investigate that. What started with something real morphed into a MAGA conspiracy theory that was sold so hard by these leaders that it's blown up in their face. And more than almost anything Trump has done thus far in the second term, and you follow the news, you're familiar with it, this is the thing saddling Trump. This is the thing that has them leaking on each other, fighting with each other, talking about not coming back to work, all because the story they sold themselves blew up on themselves. I want to bring in our experts, Michelle Goldberg from the New York Times and MSNBC analyst, and Alencia Johnson, who worked on the Harris 24 campaign and wrote Flip the Tables, Everyday Disruptor's Guide to Finding Courage and Making Change. Plenty in there for the times we're in now. Welcome to both of you. Michelle, multiple things can be true. We're all for investigating and holding the government accountable. If there were problems in the original handling of Epstein, it stretches from the Trump folks who were in charge of the Bureau of Prisons at the time If there was further cover-up or lack of transparency, that would include, of course, the ensuing Democratic administration, and now back to the Trump folks again. So there may be good questions to ask, and yet so many of the questions that have blown up in their face seem to be of their own making. In Bondi's case, saying things that she would know to be untrue.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I should say I don't really have very many priors about this. I'm inclined to believe that if there was evidence that Epstein was murdered, or if there was evidence of a so-called client list, given that we've had first Trump in charge, then Biden, now Trump again, there would be somebody who had the incentive to leak it or to put that out there. You know, that said, there are, as you said earlier, there are a lot of weird things about this case, including now the changed metadata on the tape that they put out. But I think the key is two things. One, that Pam Bondi has made these statements that can't be reconciled. Either she was lying outright and kind of getting the MAGA people's hopes up when she said, I have this list on my desk, you know, or she's lying now when she says no such lists exist and there's nothing there. And I think that part of it is that there's a difference between someone like Pam Bondi, who could have been a Republican official in a lot of different administrations, and someone like Dan Bongino, who is purely a creature of the MAGA world, would never be in the FBI under any other president, and then sort of has no political or entertainment future if he is seen by the MAGA base as a traitor. You know, Pam Bondi is more of a sort of Bill Barr figure, and so they might all despise her. But if they feel really betrayed by Dan Bongino, who I think probably was a true believer that he was going to come in there and they were going to have this cathartic exposure of all their enemies, you know, if he's now seen as being part of a cover-up, I think that's much more of a threat to him personally.
Yeah. I appreciate that breakdown. That makes a lot of sense. Alencia, I want to play the MAGA meltdown over this. For folks who aren't constantly watching The War Room or Tucker, you maybe only have heard some of it. But again, I don't think it's an overstatement that they're more upset about this than most anything that's happened in these first 170 days. Take a look.
Don't tell us all this stuff's coming out and the investigation's massive and that Trump wants it released and then say, oh, there's nothing there.
This stinks. This just reeks.
Pam Bondi needs to be fired. Who is rolling this out? The little rascals?
So I'm going to go throw up, actually.
That is so crazy. This is honestly one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
This seems like unforgivable behavior.
For them to do something like this tears my guts out.
Alencia.
It's giving Real Housewives of D.C. and a really nasty reunion. But, you know, it's interesting. Your lead into that was the point that I've been thinking about. There have been so many egregious things that have happened in this administration from, you know, we see unemployment having gone up under this administration. We see this horrible bill that happened last week. We see what is happening with these ICE raids, all of these things that have happened in this first 170 days. And this is the thing that the base is literally crying over on television and on video. And so it will be interesting to see how, moving forward, the administration actually starts to bring in some of these MAGA loyalists who, quite frankly, are these conspiracy theorists that they would campaign with, right, in 2024. They brought them into the administration, and now they are infighting, and it's leaking out publicly. Is that continuing to erode the trust that the MAGA base has with the Trump administration? And I think it will. It will. Now, I actually don't have a lot of empathy for a lot of MAGA supporters because we've been here before in his first administration, right? He'll make one promise and then go the complete opposite direction. He continues to spew conspiracy theories, or people in his cabinet do, but yet that's actually not enough for people to pump the brakes. And the people who can pump the brakes are actually the people.
Let me jump in. But on the politics, you ran with Harris, 1.5 race, right? Had it started earlier or different things happened, 1.5 in politics, that's not a Reagan landslide, right? Things can shift. Bannon says, whatever you think of him on the politics, that if they continue to mess this up, they're going to lose 10% of their base, which in a general election, quick math, would be a 5-point swing, which is pretty striking about how big they think the issue is. Take a look.
For this to go away, you're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement. If we lose 10% of the MAGA movement right now, we're going to lose 40 seats in 26. We're going to lose the president.
We start today with President Donald Trump's firm support for his embattled Attorney General Pam Bondi following the MAGA revolt over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Trump took to social media last night to say Bondi is doing a, quote, fantastic job and that his administration should all be, quote, one team. He posed the question, what's going on with my boys and in some cases, gals? It seems Trump is witnessing the continued meltdown in the MAGA movement over the Trump administration's failure to deliver all the conspiratorial goods in the Epstein investigation. After years of being fed a steady diet of conspiracy theories involving a potential who's who of Epstein's sex trafficking clients and supposed Epstein murder, including bolstering coming from within the administration itself, they were left with the underwhelming truth that none of it may be real. And they have not been taking it well, like at all. Just listen to how it was received during the conservative group Turning Point USA summit over the past 48 hours.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation?
What I'm getting at is at some point, we want answers at some point.
Yeah, answer the questions. That's it. Who went to Epstein Islands? Who specifically went on the plane? Who stayed for more than a night?
I don't think they're telling us the truth about Epstein. I think that guy was involved in something nefarious that implicates a whole lot of people.
I will not rest until we go full Jan 6 committee on the Jeffrey Epstein files and every single client that was associated with this thing has an FBI agent at their door on their phone going after them the same way they went after the Jan 6ers.
Like someone told them Santa doesn't exist. Joining us now, Anthony Coley, former director of the Office of Public Affairs at the Department of Justice and former senior advisor to Merrick Garland, and Heath Mayo, founder of the pro-democracy anti-authoritarian group Principles First, founder of the pro-democracy. I just said that. It's early, y'all. It's early. 2 times. Like it's so nice, I had to say it twice. All right. Heath, I want to start with you because we saw the president kind of try to social media post his way through some of this yesterday with this long post. Why are we giving publicity to files written by Obama, Crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers and criminals of the Biden administration? They created the Epstein files. So we're moving along the journey of pain here. But we've also seen this before, where the MAGA folks are mad at Donald Trump, and then we all say, oh, is this it? Is the crack-up happening? But then everything kind of settles down at this point. Why is this different, or is it?
I mean, this is sort of, they've caught the bus to some degree here because they have sold the lies and the deception on this to their base over and over and over again for years. And now they can't deliver on all of this stuff that they've been selling their base. Yeah. And, it's one of two things. Either he's in the files and he's trying to protect himself. He doesn't like what's in it and he doesn't want anybody to know. Or what is more likely is that it's just not this sensationalist conspiratorial result that they've been selling and there's nothing there to sell anymore.
Because if it was as bad for Donald Trump as folks want it to be, why would Joe Biden and the Democrats keep it secret?
But after promising so much to release just a meager memo, that's just not enough. Memo. It's just not satisfying the base at this point. Right. Look at the things that they said. They said February 21st, Bondi said, Epstein's client list is sitting on my desk. Then July 7th, the DOJ memo, the client list doesn't exist. And in that memo, though, it did say there were over 1,000 victims, which means that declassifying everything would be really complicated. You are the perfect person. You used to be the head of public affairs at the Department of Justice.
Yeah, Anthony,
so you were dealing constantly with the balance between declassification and educating the public and what needed to stay behind closed doors. And can you explain the process of what it would mean to give more transparency?
Well, let me start with how we got here.
Yes.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. First we practice to deceive. Right? You remember those words?
Yes.
Like, that's how we got here in many ways. So, step back. The facts. Jeffrey Epstein was charged, on Donald Trump's watch. He was arrested. He was jailed. He died on Donald Trump's watch. And on the very first day, the day of Epstein's suicide, Donald Trump was on social media promoting conspiracy theories, right? And then he gets out of office, and instead of letting the Inspector General of the Justice Department and other folks do its job without interference, they are out here spouting these conspiracy theories. And now he gets back into office, and you're right, it is the proverbial dog that caught the bus. The MAGA base isn't buying it. And the only way that they are going to quiet this down, and even then it may not help, is release the files, and they have to do so in a way that protects the names of the victims.
Identities, because there's so many details in there. And is that going to be next to impossible to do, to give some level of transparency where the base is placated and the public is also, because there is so much curiosity wondering what is being hidden, because there just is a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yes, it's a high standard, but listen, they should have thought about that before they made these promises, right? And so, right, am I wrong? Like, you can't go out, let the process take place, right, without political interference, without trying to manufacture things to advance your notion of some deep state or whatever.
And so, you know, they caught the bus, trying to placate the base. Right. People be mad. Watch what happened when Steve Bannon talked to somebody about their feelings about what's happening with the Epstein situation.
For this to go away, you're going to lose 10% of the MAGA movement. If we lose 10% of the MAGA movement right now, we're going to lose 40 seats in 26. We're going to lose the president. They don't even have to steal it, which they're going to try to do in 28, because they're going to sit there and they've disheartened the hardest core populist nationalists that's always been who governs us.
Okay, so that wasn't it. This is it. What I wanted to play. Although Steve Bannon's analysis, I think, is probably right.
I do. I think
but this is, hold on, but this is element 5.
Okay.
Do you believe that DOJ and FBI right now, with the guys who are all close to, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, do you think they have any credibility left to pursue this?
No, and I'll tell you exactly why, Steve, because in 2016, we trusted the plan with Trump. But now Trump has become the deep state. The exact thing we voted him in.
Why do you say he's become the deep state?
What is more deep state than covering up for pedophiles? Why would you go to that island? Why? Tell me, why would you go to that island? Why would you go on the plane?
I mean, he has become the deep state. This is, they caught the car. Folks are mad.
The car is burning.
And the other element of this, and you hear it there in Steve Bannon's remarks, is the only reason that some of these folks are in these positions, crazy-eyed Kash Patel at the head of the FBI, four-shirt Steve Bannon. I mean, these guys they should not be in these roles. Right. Dan Bongino, the only reason that they are there is because they were the lead spokespeople for this nonsense on their podcasts every day, whatever crazy place that they were spouting these theories. And you see the result there. People are so bought into this. And that is really the only reason that they are there, is to deliver this bill of goods that's just not there.
And Anthony, I think it's really rich that now suddenly Donald Trump, who ran against the deep state and had all these people believing in the deep state, now has his people saying he is now the deep state.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. It's because when you create this idea that something's happening that no one was really talking about, now all of a sudden they're jumping into it.
So I do think there was some element of truth to the prior clip you played about Steve Bannon and the politics of this.
The politics.
Right. When you think about the universe of Trump supporters, I'm going to oversimplify it, but you basically have people who, non-MAGA supporters who voted for Trump on issues, right? right? Economy, immigration, they voted for Trump because they didn't like Kamala Harris, right? You've got that set of people. But then on the other side, you've got these hardcore MAGA, like they are ride or die, or they were ride or die, right? They believe everything Trump says about Obama and birtherism. They believe the big lie. On this one, it's different because Trump himself was implicated, right? This all happened on his watch. And so Bannon is, if the MAGA stays home, in these midterms, if MAGA, doesn't do what MAGA does, it really could be a threat to Trumpism.
I mean, at the end, yes.
It's a perfect MAGA hurricane.
But at the same time, we've seen this before, like over and over and over again, where something pissed off the MAGA base, and then Trump is able to wriggle his way out of it. He's very good at convincing them that the sky is pink.
Right. So here's what could happen, right? So, like if you were in a normal administration, right, somebody has to take the fall, right, before you get to the big person. And so before whether or not Trump will end up surviving this, and he will, but I don't know that Bongino will or Penn Bondi will. Somebody's head is going to have to roll.
Well, they haven't satisfied. They haven't satisfied what the base needs. They want something. They've got to throw out some raw meat. And there's, for right now, nothing that they can throw the base. And so are they just going to get completely caught up? Because it is a perfect storm in that, look at Pizzagate. From Pizzagate until here, there's a through line of obsession with pedophilia, getting other people, getting Democrats who are pedophiles. So they say this is the big conspiratorial lie. But look, now they can't. They have nothing to give.
And there's something, it says something about the party that Donald Trump has created and the politics of that party, that of all the lies that this guy has told his supporters, that he was going to lower consumer prices, but then he raised tariffs, that he was going to take us out of conflicts in the Middle East, but then he's entering us into them. All of these lies. This one, this one is the one that is causing the problems. I don't know what the American people are going to think about this.
Can we put up element 2 again? Because this is what Elise was talking about, the shifting stances. February 21st, Bondi says the client list is on her desk. 17th, the DOJ memo says there ain't no client list. But check out July 12th, which was yesterday.
Yep.
Trump. There are Epstein files, but they were written by Obama, Clinton, and Biden. This, to me, is the biggest tell. Why is Trump injecting himself in this and hurling and going to his tried and true distraction method, which is saying it's Obama's fault, it's Biden's fault, it's Clinton's fault, it's everyone else's fault but mine, which makes me think, and I would love to hear from Anthony, because you've got that look on your face. Why shouldn't I think, and why should the American people think, that there is a there, given what the president just said? Wrote.
Yeah, so listen, the fact that he's thrown out these names of Clinton and Obama, it is the classic tale. The fact of the matter is that when you look at the investigation of this, it was done, comprehensive investigation, by the nonpartisan DOJ Inspector General, Michael Horowitz. Now, what's so interesting about Michael Horowitz, and Heath, you know this, is that you remember maybe 4 months ago, there was this mass firing of inspectors general across the country. Donald Trump kept Michael Horowitz as the Inspector General of the Justice Department. And so if he was so upset about the investigation that Michael Horowitz did, why didn't he fire Michael Horowitz?
Ooh, Anthony, you might have just gotten Michael Horowitz fired.
Michael Horowitz.
But good point. Very, very good point.
What do you know?
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is I mean, there's
that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
This isn't about Epstein or 9/11 or JFK or RFK. It is, but it isn't. It's about a bigger thing. If you're lying about that, you're lying about everything. Who's on the Epstein tapes, folks? Who's on those tapes? Who's in those black books? Why have they been hiding it?
And this is something Donald Trump has talked about. The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
Everything's going to come out to the public. The public has a right to know. Americans have a right to know.
President Trump and members of his administration for years building up the Jeffrey Epstein case and promising that everything will come to light. That's not what Trump's Department of Justice is delivering, and now that has become a major issue for the president's base. We'll explain why his supporters are upset and how the president responded over the weekend. Plus, a judge's ruling is now limiting how immigration officers can operate in the field. We'll explain that legal decision. It comes as new polling shows support for the Trump administration's immigration crackdowns appears to be slipping. Also ahead, the president has teased a major announcement today on the war in Ukraine. We'll go through that new reporting.
And on that front, on Ukraine, we're also going to be having David Ignatius coming to talk about weapon systems, defensive weapon systems that the president's talking about sending into Ukraine.
Correct. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Monday, July 14th. Good to be with you. With us, we have the co-host of our fourth hour, contributing writer at The Atlantic, Jonathan Lemire, and managing editor at The Bulwark, Sam Stein, is with us this morning. And we begin with President Trump's MAGA base and the growing turmoil over the administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case files. The controversy began more than a week ago when the Justice Department and FBI announced they had found no evidence that Epstein kept a client list, contradicting Attorney General Pam Bondi's past suggestion that such a list from the convicted sex offender existed and was even on her desk. Conservative influencers began to criticize both Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel for their findings, which came months after Bondi pledged to reveal major revelations about Epstein, including a lot of names and a lot of flight logs. Soon after, Semaphore reported Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino was weighing his future with the Bureau after clashing with Attorney General Bondi over the Epstein case files. Over the weekend in Florida, attendees of the conservative Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit erupted in boos over the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein case. And top MAGA leaders questioned and even criticized the White House from both the stage and on their social media accounts.
Who have you seen? Pam Bondi. She has never missed an opportunity to go on television and dangle sweet nothings that might be coming your way. Try to lead you to believe that she's got it. It's on her desk. It's coming tomorrow. You're going to see something on Epstein. And it was a tease. So you either believe that Pam Bondi was telling the truth then or that she's telling the truth now. But both cannot be true. She was either lying when she went on Fox News all those times saying, I've got it, we're looking at it, wait until you see it, it's horrible. Or she's lying in her 2-page memo that they released on a Sunday night at the tail end of a holiday weekend to Axios, as if Axios is where we all go for our news. Hell no. She went to someone she knew would not kick the tires on the story, and without signing the memo, dropped it in the dead of night and said, that's it, take the crumbs and be happy. Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
Everybody cares.
A lot. I said a lot. Every hand.
There is a lot, and we're not gonna like everything. There's a lot that's kind of bubbling under the surface, and I know you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to ask a few questions to all of you. How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap. Okay, I told you to clap. You guys aren't listening. I'm not going to grade you on a curve. So I was going to get to that. How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation? It looks like it's going to be, and now this is like the who's going to be off the island first, right? This is like who's going to be voted off the island first. I don't know what to believe on that.
I would strongly recommend in that, because I've argued for this from the beginning, that in that arc of looking at how the deep state has tried to stop Trump and the MAGA movement, you can easily fit in the Epstein situation, right? If you want the full release of documents, the special prosecutor gets it, and here's why. Epstein is a key that picks the lock on so many things, not just individuals, but also institutions, intelligence institutions, foreign governments, and who was working with him on our intelligence apparatus and in our government. This is why it's a time for choosing now.
Meanwhile, President Trump is publicly defending Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of the Epstein case. The president took to social media, calling on his MAGA base to end its obsession with Epstein, writing in part, quote, "They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein." His post was met with widespread backlash among his own followers and also prompted this response from tech billionaire and former Doge leader Elon Musk. Quote, "Seriously," he said, "Epstein half a dozen times while telling everyone to stop talking about Epstein just released the files, as promised." At the same time, two sources familiar with President Trump's thinking tell NBC News he has not lost confidence in anyone involved and has full confidence in his team. One source added at this time, there is no expectation for any changes to the leadership.
So, Jonathan Lemire, obviously, this is a story that has riled MAGA world over the past 3-4 days. And there are a couple things I don't understand. Maybe you have a better understanding of it. One is that we heard that Dan was considering quitting.
Bongino. Dan
Bongino was considering quitting. And we earlier in the weekend heard that Kash Patel was, but he clarified that. What I don't understand is it seems that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said the same thing a couple of weeks ago that Pam Bondi said, last week, which started this entire eruption. I mean, it seems to be fairly consistent there. So I don't know why there's this divide between the DOJ and the FBI. Maybe you can help me there. Secondly, there seems to be an argument coming out of the White House that these files don't exist. And at the same time, the White House is saying this is all a setup. These files were all setups by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I mean, those two things can't. We often say two things can be true at one time. Those two things cannot be true at one time. You cannot have files that do not exist that were set up by Barack Obama, when in fact all of this happened years after Barack Obama, as far as the Justice Department launching the investigation happened a few years after Barack Obama was like already golfing and windsailing and going on cruise ships.
There are so many inconsistencies.
So decipher this for us, if you will.
There are so many inconsistencies here. But let's start with the idea. The myth of Epstein is one that has been created largely on the MAGA right. Not to say that there aren't some on the left who have had interest in it as well. But we have, as you guys just played at the top of the hour, for years, not less Trump himself, but certainly people around Trump have been talking about this list and that it was going to implicate powerful people, powerful institutions, largely on the left, the Clintons, perhaps the Obamas, others, and they would all go down for it. And now we have seen since President Trump took office again, a backing away from that. There was a statement a month back or so from the FBI, you mentioned it, and now from the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, this past week, saying, well, there's no list. Even though we have heard from her earlier this term, there was a list. We've heard from Kash Patel. We've heard from Don Bongino. There was a list. There'd be access to it. They'd release it. There was that much ballyhooed stunt earlier this year where they gave a bunch of MAGA influencers some Epstein documents, and that turned out to be sort of a bust, all just publicly available material. And that kicked up some backlash on the right. And now a real fury here in the last few days. And this is what's interesting about this. Do we know what the actual Epstein list is, or even if there is a list? No, we do not. But what we do know is this is a rare moment, a very rare moment, where there is a real fracture in the president's base. And some of his most ardent supporters, we just played some of them at the Turning Point conference, but there are other social media influencers like Benny Johnson and the like who took to Twitter X over the weekend, really trashing President Trump, which we never see before, accusing him of hiding things, accusing him of not being honest about this list. And Trump's efforts to try to quell this storm, his Truth Social post, nearly 1,000 words over the weekend, did exactly the opposite. I mean, Truth Social, let's remember, this is a Donald Trump created and owned platform. This is the first time I've ever seen him be ratioed, meaning he got more comments, in this case, almost overwhelmingly negative comments, than he got likes and approval, stamps of approval for that post. There's real anger here. And as you noted, Joe, his post had so many, suggesting that there was no list, but yet it was written by the Democrats. He was talking out of both sides of his mouth. And I'm told, back to you guys here, there's some real panic in the White House right now. A lot of people have gone quiet. A lot of people have gone dark. But they recognize, those that are talking, recognize right now, this is a problem. It's a first time they've had a problem like this, and they don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.